The S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, and today's topic is risk on coming back into play. Now, I told you yesterday we had a few big things we had to watch for on this week. In particular, just so you know, you can leave this video right now if you want. Wednesday, CPI, Thursday, PPI. I think that's the biggest moving factors going into this week is can we see what's happening with core inflation and can it start to drop a little bit quicker? That's like the going basis right now. Now, we also have earnings coming into play. But the question with this movement, when we look at something like, the S&P, Nasdaq in particular, we've had this is the daily chart, clear just upside channel moving up, higher highs, higher lows continually. And getting a visual on the daily candle even here. We saw sellers try to push us down. You're bouncing right back up. This has been like the going notion, right? Sellers try to step in, but nothing really happens. Now, giving you more of a visual, we look at something like the Russell. And I think the Russell has been the best visual of risk on coming in back into the market. When we see that Nasdaq or ES hurting, typically the Russell is bouncing. For instance here, we can see going back from basically, March into June, when we get the big breakout on Nasdaq and ES, the Russell was trading sideways. Well, we've been trading kind of sideways in this next little bit of a range, bouncing off of previous highs and now breaking back to the upside. And you look here on the day, we have one of our most bullish days in this range, okay? Back-to-back bullish days, while the Nasdaq and ES kind of pull back. And it leads me to just kind of scratch my head and say, are we just setting up for more of the same? Okay, now, I say all that to say this. Bad CPI numbers, bad PPI numbers will make this a turn for the worse. I'm going to tell you right now. So all eyes on that data pool. Now, before we go any further, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I make videos for you here on the channel to show you what's happening on the market as far as news, data coming out, and then obviously the best technical setups as well. The Discord link is down below. You can go to our website, go to join now, and you can just scroll down and see what best works for you. But if you're brand new to trading and you just don't even know what to do, I don't think a Discord is for you. I would say come over to our website, go to education. This is all free. We're making these once a week, usually, as of now. Different articles and things that we kind of educate you guys on. And it's all free. So just clicking a random one, we'll go to trend lines, right? And so you can see we're not selling you anything. It's free. Like, we don't sell a course. That's not what our Discord is. Our Discord, so you can just be around traders like yourself, understand why me and Jay are getting into trades, getting out of trades, and, everything that goes into the trading as well. Some days it's really dry. Some days it's, a lot happening. But it gives you a really transparent viewpoint of what's happening in the market. And we're never going to say things to, make you happy or anything along those lines. It's just what we're doing. But again, education may be for you if you're brand new to trading. And I recommend this for anyone and everyone. So going back, as far as news today, we also had some pretty interesting movement. Because when I started the video, we started here with this is the dollar, if you don't know. And I'm going to do this video a little bit backwards. I'm going to go over some news and then go over kind of what's happening with indexes. I don't think we need to focus too much on indexes right now, other than the fact that Russell is trying to break out, because the data hasn't been released yet. The data is the all-powerful piece of information right now. But when we look at some of these big fundamental things as far as the dollar and oil and commodities, and yields, the dollar's getting hammered today. People continue to say, oh, the dollar looks bullish, but again, you're clearly in the downtrend, descending triangle, back down into your major support. You've wrapped up, it took almost from June 16th all the way until, July 6th, over 20 days to get you to this high. In 2 days, you're back down, breaking through lows here. Food for thought. Just shows you bears are definitely stepping into the dollar here as well. Now, where there was an interesting glimpse of, or glimmer of hope today, was the oil markets. And I do want to shed some light on this, because one thing with the oil, and again, if you don't know, the 200 SMA on the weekly is right there. You're just grinding on top of it. I still think oil is bearish. I think you expect downside here on oil, but we'll play it by ear. You can still see, and you'll notice that this is following the dollar chart, very similar to the chart. And we're testing previous lows that we had back here back in December through, February, basically. We broke down testing, and that's where we're at today. And so today we got a little bit of a spark to the upside, as you can see. But you can also see we're coming back into the resistance. So I'm very curious to see if we reject further. We've already rejected throughout the day here. But the news that kind of pushed us here was right here. So Saudi Arabia announced that they are going to stick to their current cuts, and that's where they're going to kind of stay on oil production. And so when that news came out, obviously we continued to the upside. right? This was on July 3rd. And that's kind of been, if you go to the chart, you can kind of see that's what's like portraying and pushing us there. We had a little bit more news over the weekend, but essentially that's what's playing. You see July 3rd, and you've been moving up since then. Okay. Now, I do want to shed light on this, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying this is going to happen next, or I'm not even saying it's happening. And I think when it comes to China and Russia, the best thing to do if you're not very familiar with the news surrounding them is to just stay disconnected and not worry about it, because it'll do more harm than good. But if by some chance Russia and Ukraine make peace, if somehow this happens, I think it's something that we have to be paying more and more attention to. Oil prices, in my opinion, will plummet. They will get destroyed. Okay? Personal opinion, what I think will happen. And I think it's just something we need to be paying attention to. Because if oil's already looking very weak, I'm just saying, if it gets any weaker, we've seen what happens when you break below 200 SMA. I've gone over this in a lot of my other videos. Do your own DD, do your own TA, but definitely worth mentioning and watching. And I'm not saying it's gonna happen. It's just something that's slowly getting on my radar. And I think it's more of a possibility that this Ukraine situation gets resolved sooner than later. Now, especially going back into a presidential election. Again, everyone gets mad when I talk about politics, but I'm just saying a lot of the stuff with the financial markets have to do with politics. Now, also mentioning today, again, no surprise, and this kind of just like reaffirms our thesis. Quick refresh. 62 million volume on the day. Again, we're coming out lower than expected. Honestly, Friday and Thursday had decent volume. Wasn't terrible. But I just want to say, this makes sense. We're not getting a lot of volume, indecision in the direction of the market, going into CPI, PPIs. That's why I don't want to talk too much about these indexes and things that are happening there in particular. Also going into the chain, VIX, you're seeing people buying into it, but obviously smaller orders, not super interested. SPY, a lot more calls coming in today. Very interested, especially the 430 calls for October. Definitely interesting. 440. You saw some bigger orders come in. You saw some sweeps to the downside as well, but definitely interesting seeing what's happening there onto both sides of that. QQQ, both ways as well. 400 strikes for June 21st. Very, very soon. Near dated on those as well. So again, I'm not super interested in this option chain stuff. If you look at the flow on both sides of it, if we look at the overall chain and open interest, you go to TOS or something like that, it's pretty flat in my opinion. It's going both ways. There's not heavily to the call side, heavily to the put side as far as in the money options, near dated and over the next 3 to 4 months. So again, going back into a few more things really quick, going into yields as well. We saw yields push down today. We did see some downside on the yields. The yield market's restarting right now, but we did see some downside here on yields. Again, you need to see more. You saw the 10 and 30-year inversion go back below full inversion, which is good news, but you're never really out of it until you really start to plummet here. So we need to see more information. The biggest thing that will turn the 10 and 30-year inversion is good data, in my opinion, and then the next time we end up finishing these rate hikes. It's honestly when you're going to see the inversion spike back to the downside, but definitely food for thought. Keeping a close eye again on what's happening here on yields. I also want to say though too, I'm not a fan of going long on yields here. I'm not a fan of expecting a market crash based on yields where that, because again, you're going to notice they're all back at their local highs. Maybe you break highs, maybe you don't. But again, what do we don't? We don't buy high and sell low. We buy low and sell high. And this is a perfect case of that. Also, gold, a little bit of a bounce, but bear flagging looks like it wants to go back down. So again, the risk on signals are coming into play. Definitely paying close attention to them. I think you have to, and they definitely excite me here. So again, looking at indexes in particular and just giving you a little bit of a rant on why I like what's happening here. This is the Russell on the daily. I don't know how you could dislike this. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can definitely see how we're playing out here. I wouldn't call this an ascending triangle, but it looks good. It looks great. You're mounting the 200 SMA on the weekly and the daily. Those are both worth mentioning and definitely worth following, as you can see on both of these, and you're making higher lows. And again, when you see the Russell doing this action and making this type of movement, go back to January when you had the big push here. Very similar action. Go back into, July of last year, going into summer. Similar action. Go back into October. So it's definitely worth watching and worth mentioning with how the Russell is moving, trying to break back to the upside. Okay, that's what we want to see. Definitely want to see riskier names, smaller caps getting more momentum. And so today we saw some of that downside, push here, but it's worth mentioning, where did we see the upside? We saw it in Russell, and again, we saw it in Dow. So Dow on the daily, again, great candle, bouncing out of support like we mentioned going into the weekend. Great support there. ES also had a decent day, very strong day. Buyers holding you up, keeping you above 4,400 and 4,440. These are things you want to see. But again, on ES, on Nasdaq, on Dow, it comes down to CPI and PPI, so there's no reason for us to go too far into theory or what's happening with technicals. Like, just be a little patient, be a little calm. It does look good. Happy with how we're playing out, but that's it for now. Now, stocks I'm liking, everyone's favorite little segment. Number one, BABA. I kind of keep talking about this one. I've been posting it on Twitter. Again, if you go to the weekly, I think it's where it stands out the most. Clear inverted head and shoulders, but trying to play out. I almost started grabbing some of these at the end of the day today. I have not established a position, but basically I'm going to break it down for you as quickly and easily as possible. What you're looking for is this and only this. You want to see you hold above the 200 SMA on the daily here. That's number one. Okay, so that's number one, the daily. Now, the weekly is nowhere to be found. It's way up there, so you have plenty of time. As long as you hold above the daily 200 SMA at 88.3, I believe it's a buy. I went into detail of like what's happening with BABA and Ant Group and kind of how they fixed that issue or that's getting resolved. I believe this is what's kind of been holding back BABA. If we also look at what's happening in China right now, I've gone really big into what they're doing, trying to push more investments happening in China. And even buying homes, you can't own a home in China, but they're still pushing that and making it easier and easier and easier. They're trying to stimulate the economy. Anytime they try to stimulate the economy, the United States, for instance, 2020, 2021, usually good things happen. So I like some of these Chinese names here, but the catch-21 is that you have to go dated, in my opinion. So if I'm looking at BABA in particular, I'm looking at like right in the money or right out of the money contracts for like January at the like nearest time frame. I wouldn't go short dated because you can get killed on BABA. So I would want to have like about 10% risk, not even if you're going dated, underneath the 200 SMA, but your upside target here, just in the, conservative side of things, right? 104, 105, and then up to 122. If you get a full on breakout, you will test the 200 SMA on the weekly, but that's like far out of reach here. And I just don't want to, go and start just throwing numbers out there for everyone. But overall, this is what I'm looking at in the big levels here. It's definitely one of the better names that are playing out there. Number two is Meta, and this is going to stay on my list. I'm going to keep screaming this name. What Meta has done and is doing is incredible. If you don't know, Meta just reached 100 million subscribers or users on Threads, destroying the previous record of like 5 weeks. They did it in 5 days. It's also worth mentioning, you can look. I've tried to find the chart. I couldn't find it on my computer. I had it on my phone. I meant to bookmark it. You can see the trending graph of users on Twitter going down and Threads going through the roof. Now, again, it's only been a week, so only time will tell. But I want to say this right now. Threads is taking advantage, like I said, of a very injured company like Twitter. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, whoever you are. All I care about is making money on the channel and finding stocks that make sense. What Meta is doing is smart. Zuckerberg, the king of copycats, is dominating the copycat race again. And the action that you're getting here on Meta is as close to perfect as it's going to get. Again, the 289 level, it's your previous low right here before you jumped all the way down to 250. Giving you a visual of how you're playing out here. The daily 4-hour, 2-hour chart all look incredible. You're breaking through the ascending triangle, finding resistance at 300, makes sense, but you're bouncing over and over again at this level, and strong buyers continue to show up here. So I want it to be really clear. Just for myself and in Discord, right? And you're getting countless opportunities here. You're going to literally continue to get the same opportunities time and time and time again here. But I want to say this again. Coop posted this a little bit earlier. She made about $13,000 off of Meta. Some of that might be, turning over, so maybe like 11,000 from Discord. By the way, Coop, for listening, congratulations. Like, she recently joined Discord. And again, I can only say so much. You're only going to get what you put in. Coop has been putting in countless hours of work in Discord. She's not asking us when we're getting in, when we're getting out. She's taking the trade ideas, taking what we're looking for in the market and molding it to see what fits her trading strategy. And that's what ultimately has to happen. You should never be dependent on someone in order to make money or in order to profit in the market in particular. We're not like a signal service like that. That's the goal, is to teach people to ultimately do this all on their own. So again, shout out Coop. She absolutely destroyed it. So yeah, that was really big there. But again, you're getting those opportunities, and that's just from buying 289 and selling at 298. Again, the contracts move good and they're dated. Absolutely love them. And again, you're holding up once again, even while the market, in particular tech, is shooting down. For instance here, I mean, in my opinion, it looks a little bit like a retest and a bull flag trying to break back to the upside. You go into an NQ, look what's happening with tech. Tech is, getting a pullback. But again, in comparison to some of these names, like you look at NVIDIA, we saw more of a pullback here, big pullback, bigger pullback. AMD, love AMD, still have my AMD, but did pullback. Google, bigger pullback. Amazon, bigger pullback. So just taking into consideration things to be looking for. Meta, Baba, my favorite names right now. The next one, though, will go into 100% Amazon. And again, funny, we're coming back here. I'm looking for us to get back above 127.5. If you get back above 127.5, it's a buy. This is the major level. You get back above that, I like it, back into the 200 SMA. I'd be looking for it there. Tesla, another one, big opportunity here as well. You were looking for 264. I don't know if you got the touch today. You almost did. We talked about this heavily in Discord, and I think it was in the newsletter as well this week. But 264 is the level to watch. You might start bouncing from here, and it's definitely top of the watch list. Again, companies that I'm fundamentally bullish on, Meta in particular. Baba is risky, is a riskier name, but Meta and Tesla are probably fundamentally the most bullish names that I like right now. They both had very big news in the recent, and I also believe going into earnings, they have a lot of upside potential. Tesla less than Meta, just because Tesla never shoots up on earnings, but definitely things to be considering. Last name, again, remains AMD. I still absolutely love it. You're grinding to the upside. You're making higher lows. You're mounting supports. This is what you want to see. I want to see us get above 116, 117 to be safe. Get above 117. I think we're back in bull territory. I think we're still having a battle here. We were buying down at 107, 106. I still love this. You've got an opportunity at 110 today. But again, still love this and what's happening. Food for thought, AVGO is on a tear today. And again, it's a clear ascending triangle trying to break to the upside, which also looks good, might I say. But we see these lagging semiconductors time and time again. NVIDIA and AMD are lagging here. I like what's happening. I like the structure. Again, the same game plan. You've got multiple re-entry opportunities. You also could have taken profits on a lot of these in the recent term and got back into these plays. So again, it's working out. I love what's happening. If you have questions, comment down below. See you tomorrow. Have a good one, traders.